There is a match scheduled for this tournament that was never supposed to happen, not in the sense that its scheduling was administratively complicated or logistically difficult, in the sense that the specific combination of circumstances that produced this fixture, the geopolitical developments, the institutional decisions, the legal rulings, and the human choices that had to align in a specific sequence to create the conditions under which this match exists on the tournament calendar was a combination that nobody in FIFA's planning architecture, nobody in the participating nations' football federations, and nobody in the global football community anticipated when the draw was made and the group stage fixtures were assigned. And now it is about to happen. And when it does, everything changes. Not everything in the hyperbolic sense that sports coverage uses the word to describe moments that are significant without being genuinely transformative. Everything in the specific institutional, legal, sporting, and human sense that a match whose existence represents the convergence of the most significant forces shaping this tournament produces consequences that extend beyond the 90 minutes of football it contains into the permanent record of what this World Cup meant and what it will mean for every tournament that follows it. Here is what the match is. Here is exactly how it came to exist when it was never supposed to. Here is what happens during it that nobody has modeled for. And here is why the moment the final whistle blows on this fixture, the 2026 World Cup becomes permanently, irreversibly, and historically different from every World Cup that came before it. Subscribe right now because the context that makes this match what it is requires the full story, and the full story is what we are about to tell. Drop a comment telling us whether you think this match should be happening at all, because that question does not have a simple answer, and the complexity of the answer is exactly what makes the match matter beyond the football it contains. Part 1. How a match that was never supposed to happen ended up on the schedule. Every match in a World Cup group stage exists because a draw placed two nations in the same group and a scheduling process assigned their fixture to a specific date, time, and venue. The process appears mechanical. It is not. It is the product of decisions about group composition, venue assignment, scheduling sequencing, and fixture timing that reflect institutional priorities, commercial considerations, and logistical requirements that shape the tournament structure in ways that are invisible to the casual observer, but that matter enormously to the people whose nations are affected by them. The match that was never supposed to happen exists because a sequence of those decisions, made at different points in the tournament's planning process by different institutional actors with different priorities and different levels of awareness of what the other decisions were producing, converged into a fixture whose specific character nobody anticipated and nobody planned for. The first decision in the sequence was the group stage draw. The draw placed nations together based on seeding criteria and confederation distribution rules that are designed to produce competitive balance and geographic diversity across the tournament's group stage. The draw is conducted with procedures designed to appear random while managing the underlying distribution that seeding and confederation rules require. The specific group composition that produced the conditions for this match was not targeted or designed. It was the product of a process that nobody anticipated would produce a fixture with the specific character this one has. The second decision was venue assignment. Group stage fixtures are assigned to specific venues based on scheduling efficiency, stadium capacity requirements, and the commercial and logistical priorities of the tournament's organizing committee. The venue assignment that placed this specific fixture in this specific stadium in this specific city was not made with knowledge of the geopolitical and institutional developments that would subsequently transform the fixture's character. It was made with the information available at the time it was made, and that information did not include the developments that make this match what it is. The third decision was the sequence of geopolitical, institutional, and legal developments that transformed a routine group stage fixture into something that has never existed before in World Cup history. Iran's refusal to play on American soil, FIFA's forfeit ruling, the Court of Arbitration for Sport process that Iran initiated, the cascade of institutional responses from other national federations, the commercial pressures on the tournament's financial architecture, the fan access crisis, the credibility damage produced by the Peace Prize ceremony. Each of these developments, individually, transformed some aspect of the tournament's character. Together, they created the conditions under which a specific match that was always on the schedule became a match that was never supposed to happen in the form it is now going to take. Part 2. What makes this match different from every other match in the tournament? Every match in this tournament is being played in a context shaped by the crises surrounding it. Every match carries the weight of Iran's absence, the fan access restrictions, the institutional credibility damage, and the commercial pressures that have transformed the 2026 World Cup from the tournament it was designed to be into the tournament it has become. Every match is part of a tournament whose legitimacy is formally contested in an international court of law. Every match is being watched by a global football community that is simultaneously passionate about the football and troubled by the circumstances surrounding it. This match carries all of that weight and something additional, something specific to its own character that no other match in the tournament carries. It carries the weight of being the match that should not exist in the form it exists in, the match whose specific character is the direct product of every institutional failure, every geopolitical development, and every human decision that has defined this tournament's crisis. The match that is simultaneously a football match and a referendum on everything that has happened around this tournament since the draw was made. The nations competing in this match are nations whose presence in this specific fixture at this specific stage of the tournament is the direct consequence of decisions made by institutions they did not control, developments they did not create, and circumstances they did not choose. Their players will compete with full commitment and full professional dedication to winning the football match in front of them. They will compete as footballers do, focused on the 90 minutes and the tactical challenge and the physical demands of international competition at the highest level. And they will compete carrying a context that no amount of pre-match preparation can fully address because the context is not a football problem. It is an institutional problem that is wearing a football match. The officials governing this match will be the most scrutinized match officials in the history of the tournament. Not because the match itself is the final or a knockout round elimination that determines a nation's tournament fate in the immediate sense. Because every decision the officials make will be examined through the lens of the institutional credibility crisis surrounding the tournament. Every controversial call will generate analysis that connects it to the broader question of whether the tournament's institutional framework is capable of delivering the standard of governance that the football it contains deserves. The broadcast of this match will be the most watched broadcast of any group stage match in this tournament. Not because the football matchup is the most compelling on paper, because the story surrounding the match is the most compelling story the tournament has produced, and the broadcast will attempt to contain both the football story and the institutional story simultaneously in ways that broadcast technology is not fully equipped to manage. Part 3. What happens during the match that nobody has modeled for? The 90 minutes of this match will contain football, goals or no goals. Tactical battles between coaching staffs who have prepared for each other's specific strengths and vulnerabilities. Individual moments of brilliance or error that determine the outcome in the way that football outcomes are always ultimately determined. By the specific actions of specific players in specific moments that no amount of institutional context can predict or control. But the 90 minutes will also contain something that nobody in FIFA's match management framework has specifically prepared for. The possibility that an event occurs during the match that directly connects the football happening on the pitch to the institutional crisis surrounding the tournament in a way that cannot be managed through the normal mechanisms of match officiating and post-match communications. The event nobody has modeled for is not a specific incident. It is a category of incident. An incident that would, under normal tournament circumstances, be managed through the established mechanisms of match officiating, video review, disciplinary proceedings, and official communications. But that, under these specific circumstances, in this specific match, with this specific institutional context surrounding it, would become something that the established mechanisms are not equipped to contain because the established mechanism's credibility is precisely what the tournament's crisis has called into question. FIFA's match management framework assumes a baseline level of institutional credibility that allows its decisions to be received as authoritative, even when they are contested. Controversial decisions in normal tournament circumstances generate controversy that the institution's credibility eventually absorbs. Controversial decisions in a tournament whose institutional credibility is formally contested at the Court of Arbitration for Sport do not get absorbed in the same way. They become additional evidence in the ongoing assessment of whether the institution governing the tournament is capable of the standard of governance the tournament requires. The match officials assigned to this fixture have been briefed on the institutional context. They are aware that their decisions will be scrutinized with a level of intensity that goes beyond the normal scrutiny that World Cup match officiating attracts. They are professionals who will attempt to apply the laws of the game with the same standard they would apply in any other fixture. But they are applying those laws in a context that transforms the reception of their decisions in ways that their professionalism cannot fully control. Part 4. What the result means regardless of what it is. The result of this match will mean something beyond what football results normally mean. Every football result means something to the nations involved. Victory and defeat in a World Cup group stage fixture affect tournament progression, national morale, and the sporting legacy of the players whose performances determined the outcome. Those meanings are real and they matter to the people whose nations are involved and to the football community watching. This result will mean something additional. It will mean something institutional. It will become part of the evidence base that every analyst, every federation administrator, every sponsor communications team, and every legal observer following this tournament uses to assess whether the 2026 World Cup delivered on the sporting promise that justifies the institutional investment it represents. If the match produces a result that is clean in the sporting sense, a clear competitive outcome determined by football quality rather than officiating controversy, administrative complication, or external disruption, it will provide a moment of genuine sporting clarity in a tournament that has been defined by institutional complexity. That clarity will not resolve the institutional crisis surrounding the tournament. But it will demonstrate that the football itself is capable of rising above the circumstances surrounding it in ways that matter to the 5 billion people watching for the sport rather than the politics. If the match produces a result that is contested in any dimension, an officiating decision that generates significant controversy, an administrative complication arising from the tournament's ongoing legal challenges, or an external disruption that affects the match's conduct or completion, it will become the moment that crystallizes everything the tournament's critics have argued about the institutional framework's inability to govern the football it contains with the standard the football deserves. The result will be scrutinized through both lenses simultaneously, regardless of what it is. The football community watching it will divide along lines that the tournament's crisis has already drawn between those who believe the football can be separated from the institutional context and those who believe the institutional context has permanently colored everything the tournament produces. The match will not resolve that division. It will intensify it in one direction or the other, depending on whether what happens on the pitch gives the football first perspective or the institutional context perspective the stronger argument. Part 5. What changes after the final whistle? When the final whistle blows on this match, something changes that cannot be unchanged. The match will have happened. Its result will be in the official tournament record. The football that was played in it will be part of the permanent sporting record of the 2026 World Cup, regardless of what the Court of Arbitration for Sport eventually rules about the legitimacy of the group stage results surrounding it. The players who competed in it will carry it in their careers. The coaches who made the tactical decisions that shaped it will carry it in their professional records. The officials who governed it will carry it in their officiating histories. And the tournament will carry it as the match that represented something larger than any single 90-minute football match has represented in the 92-year history of this competition. The match that was never supposed to happen in the form it happened. The match whose existence was the direct product of every institutional failure, every geopolitical development, and every human decision that defined the most controversial World Cup in history. The match that was simultaneously a football match and a document that recorded what happens when the institutions governing the world's most popular sport make choices that the sport and the people who love it did not authorize them to make. FIFA did not plan for this match to be what it is. Nobody planned for it. It became what it is through a sequence of decisions and developments and human choices that nobody fully controlled and that nobody fully anticipated. And when it ends, the tournament will have produced its most important moment. Not the most important football moment, the most important institutional moment. The moment that future analysts will identify as the point where the 2026 World Cup stopped being a tournament with problems surrounding it and became a tournament that was permanently defined by those problems in ways that the football it contained could not overcome. The match that was never supposed to happen is about to happen. And when it does, the 2026 World Cup will be complete in the sense that matters most for how it will be remembered. Not because the trophy will have been lifted, because the match that represents everything this tournament became will have been played, and the record of what it was will exist permanently in the institutional history of a sport that deserved better from the organizations responsible for governing it. Drop your comment right now. What do you think this match represents? The resilience of football despite everything surrounding it, or the failure of the institutions that were supposed to protect it? Subscribe and stay with us, because what happens after the final whistle is the story that this entire tournament has been building toward. And we will be here for every moment of it.